A CEO's laugh turned to shock when a cook's daughter authored an amazing turnaround in 30 days. Margie stood in the crowded gala, feeling out of place among the shimmering silk and designer suits. The laughter and clinking of glasses blended into a disorienting haze as she tried to drown out the laughter of the tech elite. Her heart raced, senses heightened as she maneuvered through the throngs of guests. Then she heard it, the voice of a powerful CEO slicing through the night air. "Cooking is just cooking. How far can a cook really go?" The words sank like stones in her stomach, an arrow aimed at the heart of her father's passion. Her father was more than a cook. He was an artist, a storyteller. But here, in this room of affluence, his talent was reduced to a mockable trade. The weight of his honest work hung heavy on her shoulders. She felt the sting of anger alongside a swelling tide of embarrassment, the voice in her head amplifying her insecurities. Would she forever be just the cook's daughter? Margie clutched her phone tightly, a lifeline in the overwhelming sea of doubt. If only they could see what she saw. She envisioned a future where her father's restaurant wasn't just a forgotten hole in the wall, but a beacon of culinary excellence. The gala faded into a blur as her heart ignited with determination. She needed to act. Enrolling in night classes felt like her lifeline, a way to marry her father's dedication with her relentless ambition. She had a brilliant mind, but how could she convince others, especially the CEO who belittled her father's work, that talent wasn't determined by status? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. The pressure mounted relentlessly. Late-night classes turned into early morning shifts, and fatigue often clawed at her resolve. Yet the thought of that dismissive CEO fueled her drive. Each lesson on business strategy deepened her understanding, awakening a dormant potential. She mapped out her plan with a relentless fervor, poring over spreadsheets and reports long past midnight. Could she really transform her father's failing restaurant in 30 days? The daunting timeline made her muscles tense. Doubt loomed like a storm cloud, threatening to unleash a deluge of insecurities. As she plotted the changes, unsettling questions crept in. Was she brave enough to challenge the status quo? Doubts hissed at the edges of her resolve, pushing against her determination. What if she failed? What would that mean? Would the world see her father's craft as just cooking, or could she elevate it into something beautiful? Margie's heart raced as the thought of facing her father's disappointment loomed, overshadowing her courage. Making a name for herself felt like walking a tightrope, and the winds of doubt roared beneath her. The deadline loomed closer, thickening the air with tension. She had to prove herself, not just to others, but to her own questioning heart. As transformed kitchen plans began to take shape, the struggles escalated. Would the CEO's dismissal become her motivation, or was it merely a reminder of how far she had to go? Margie stood at the precipice of a breakthrough, but overwhelmed with uncertainty, the night before the grand reopening turned into a whirl of panic. Would success finally change her life, or would her restaurant's fate remain overshadowed by prejudice? The promise of tomorrow echoed in her mind, but so did the fear of failure, thickening her resolve as she steeled herself to finally step into her destiny. Margie woke early, her heart thumping wildly against her ribs as she glanced at the clock. It was time to rise and shine, not just for her father, but for herself. The crucial day was upon her, and visions of the restaurant tearing down its walls to reveal a vibrant heartbeat danced in her mind. She took a moment to breathe, centering her thoughts before plunging headfirst into her plan. The kitchen buzzed with energy as she arrived, the familiar smell of spices merging with the warmth of the ovens. Her father was already preparing the morning specials, lost in his world of flavors. Watching him, Margie felt a pang of guilt. She had to show him that his art was more than just sustenance. It was a canvas for innovation and business savvy. As she approached him, his brow furrowed, a hint of concern shadowing his face. "What's wrong, Margie?" he asked, setting down a knife. "Nothing, Dad. I have a plan," she replied, her voice steady despite the rush of doubt nagging at her. But as she laid out her ideas, revamping the menu, updating the decor, orchestrating the grand reopening event, a flicker of disbelief crossed his face. Perhaps she noticed it too late, but it cut deeper than she'd anticipated. "Sweetheart, this isn't just about changing a few things. It's our life's work. What if it doesn't work?" His concern was palpable, deep-rooted in years of hard work and soul-searching in a field that had often turned their passion into pennies. "Just trust me. I know we can turn this around," she insisted, recalling the CEO's dismissive remark, the fuel to her fiery ambition. Days morphed into weeks of grinding effort, Margie leading from the front while balancing her classes. Late nights poured into forging partnerships with local suppliers and mastering social media to bring people in. She wrestled with spreadsheets, analysis paralysis threatening to sabotage her every move. But one thing became clear with each passing day. She was no longer just the cook's daughter. She was a driving force, embodying a change that could ripple out far beyond the walls of their little restaurant. However, progress was not linear. Each setback, from supply issues to budget constraints, introduced new waves of anxiety. The nagging questions of her father's disappointment seemed to echo louder after every misstep. In moments of solitude, she would doubt her ability to pull all of this off. Was she really destined to shatter the confines of familial identity? On the eve of the grand reopening, Margie's mind whirled in a tempest of optimism and dread. Would the fairy tale of transformation hold true, or was she chasing an illusion? She meticulously checked every detail: menu designs, table placements, the new chef's specialties. And yet a nagging thought lingered. What if tonight's failure wove a web of judgment around them, suffocating her father's artistry once again? Casting the fears aside, she focused on the excitement swirling in her stomach. The world outside would soon see what they had created, a celebration of culinary heritage married to modern excellence. She could almost hear the sounds of laughter and clinking glasses she had dreamed of, yet the reality of the moment settled in the pit of her stomach. As guests began arriving, Margie felt the suffocating weight of expectations. But this time, she would face them head-on. Tonight was not just an introduction of a new menu, it was a reckoning. The time had come to face not only the outside world, but the woman she was becoming. Would she emerge a leader, or remain constrained by the shadows of self-doubt? Margie's future hung in the balance, as she took a deep breath, ready to step onto the stage. The restaurant thrummed with life as the first guests settled in, a wave of chatter washing over Margie. She stepped back to take a breath, scanning the room filled with familiar faces that once represented the community her father built. Yet tonight, they weren't merely patrons. They were witnesses to her vision. A twisted blend of anticipation and panic coursed through her. Would they love what she had crafted, or leave disappointed? The first course arrived, a fusion of ingredients that reflected the heart of her proposed changes. Margie had poured everything into revamping the menu, emphasizing fresh, local sources that spoke to their roots while showcasing innovation. She caught snippets of conversation from tables nearby, laughter mingling with hushed discussions of flavors. Each compliment they savored felt like a vote of confidence. Her father moved past her, a transient shadow in the warmly lit dining room. He dished out food with a precision that spoke of years in the kitchen, yet seemed to miss a spark. She glanced at him, yearning for a flicker of pride in his eyes, but only a stoic focus returned her gaze. The unspoken tension nagged at her, a constant reminder of how much was at stake, not just for her, but for the legacy they had built together. "Margie!" One of her friends approached, a drink spilling over the rim of his glass. "People are raving! You did it!" His enthusiasm jolted her, a brief surge of adrenaline pushing her doubts aside. "Really? They like the new flavors? Love them! You're turning this place into something amazing!" His support momentarily uplifted the heavy clouds of anxiety hovering above her. However, the joy didn't last long. As she moved through the dining area, she spotted an unexpected face at a corner table, the same CEO who had dismissed her ideas weeks before. He sat with a small group, their raised glasses celebrating yet another feast. The tension in Margie's gut twisted. Would he take delight in their success or condemn it as mere coincidence? The thought returned like a persistent itch throughout the evening. Each time she filled a water glass or adjusted a place setting, her heart seemed to skip. The carefree chatter became a cacophony, drowning out her focus. When dessert began to roll out, a carefully curated selection that married tradition with contemporary techniques, Margie felt empowered. Yet, standing back to observe the CEO's face became an obsession. She needed to see his reaction. The moment arrived. He took a bite of the lavender-infused panna cotta she had expertly crafted. Her breath caught. Time stood still. Would he savor the experience or wrench his face in disdain? His eyes widened and the fork stopped mid-air. Margie watched, holding her breath as disbelief etched over his features. Then came a slight, reluctant nod of approval, a beginning to acknowledge her abilities. More importantly, it was a nod to the worth of her father's legacy woven into her vision. This single moment shattered another layer of her doubt. As the evening progressed, she felt her father's presence shift. He no longer flitted nervously between tables, but instead began to engage with guests, invigorated by the lively atmosphere she had ignited. By the time the last customers rolled out, their hearts full and satisfied, a wave of energy surged through Margie, a proverbial cherry atop the night. She was not just the cook's daughter. She was a force of change, a tangible manifestation of the restaurant's potential. But as the last guests left, Margie couldn't shake the sense of an impending confrontation. The CEO had barely spoken to her, and she could sense that his astonishment turned into a smoldering challenge. What would he do next? How would their relationship evolve? As Margie began closing down the restaurant, an unexpected twist loomed. The door swung open, and the CEO walked back in, a sly grin spreading across his face. The night was far from over. This conversation would change everything. "Margie." The CEO's voice cut through the last echoes of laughter in the restaurant, a velvet tone tinged with something she couldn't place. He walked further into the space, the energy that had filled the room moments before now replaced with an electric tension. "I have to say, tonight was unexpected. Unexpected." The word hung in the air like a bitter spice. She swallowed hard, unwilling to reveal how much his opinion mattered. "Thank you," she replied, steadying herself. "I hoped everyone would find something new to enjoy." He leaned against a nearby table, arms crossed, surveying the remnants of the night's success. "You've certainly managed to shake things up. I'm curious, what's next on your agenda?" His questioning floated in the air, a test wrapped in intrigue. She felt the weight of his gaze, measuring her response. Here was her chance to pivot, to take control of the narrative where she had once felt stifled. "I want to continue evolving our menu," she said, her tone firmer than she felt. "Collaboration with local farmers, incorporating seasonal themes, bringing more than just dishes to the table." It's a holistic experience. He raised an eyebrow, his interest piqued. Ambitious, but even with this success, you face skepticism from people who manage by data rather than passion. Passion can fuel a lot of data. Margie felt a thrill in her veins. If you think about ingredients, each can be seen as a story. I am committed to making those stories resonate with our patrons. Numbers can't tell you that. A smirk danced at the corners of his mouth. And what about your father? Has he endorsed this new direction? The question prickled at old wounds. The restaurant had been a father-daughter effort, yet she often felt she was trying to pull him into something he resented. He has his reservations, she conceded, but I believe in showing him how this can breathe new life into what he built. Constructive passion or reckless abandon? How do you distinguish between the two? His challenge was clear, like a wall before her. Margie took a deep breath, recalling the proud responses from patrons earlier that evening. Reckless abandon doesn't plan for failure, while constructive passion learns from every plate that leaves the kitchen. I'm prepared to confront any downturn, but not at the risk of losing the essence of what we stand for. His smile widened, revealing a glint of respect. That's a bold approach. We wouldn't be having this conversation if I didn't acknowledge the potential of your vision. But, he paused, the weight of his words thick with implication. You're not just up against my expectations. The industry won't care about your legacy. It moves too fast. The implications loomed, a storm cloud gathering over what felt like a breakthrough. What seemed like a moment of recognition was morphing into an ultimatum. I'm not afraid of adversity, she replied, matching his intensity. Every challenge is just a stepping stone. Let's see if that holds true. His eyes registered something akin to respect, but it was laced with a challenge. There's an opportunity brewing, a competition, and I think you could make quite the statement in it. A competition? Her heart raced anew with the prospect. This could redefine everything. Think about it, he said, an undercurrent of encouragement hidden in the challenge. It might just showcase how far you've come and test your theories. Margie felt rejuvenated, a fire igniting within. A chance to stretch her wings further beyond the confines of this restaurant to truly demonstrate her capability was ahead. But looming questions sat heavy on her mind. Would this competition amplify her vision or drown it beneath the weight of expectation? Will you take the leap? He asked, probing her resolve as he stepped back towards the door. The night continued to hum with possibility, but Margie's thoughts churned. Could she stretch into this unknown, or would it risk everything she fought to build? The door clicked shut behind him, leaving her with the echo of his challenge and the weight of the opportunity now pressed against her brow like a heavy crown. There were too many stakes at play. The turning point was near, but how would she navigate the chaos that was yet to come? Margie remained in the dimly lit restaurant long after the CEO departed. The remnants of the celebration faded into a solitary echo, leaving her alone with the promise of disruption and the looming specter of doubt. The air felt thick with the weight of expectations, not just from him, but from herself. She stood amidst the scattered plates and half-burnt candles, grappling with the adrenaline still coursing through her veins. Take the leap, he had said, but what did that really mean? The idea of a competition both thrilled and terrified her. The potential for success glimmered tantalizingly, yet the shadow of failure loomed much larger. The memories of each recipe developed echoed in her mind. The nights spent testing flavors, the laughter shared with her culinary team, and her father's reluctant yet methodical appreciation for the craft. Would this competition be a way to finally assert her own vision within the shadows of his legacy? Margie moved mechanically to the kitchen, drawn to its familiar comforts. The stainless steel surfaces gleamed under the lights, awaiting new inspiration. She needed to devise a plan, to harness this challenge and mold it into something transformative.
It was time to reframe what being a chef meant, not a mere executor of recipes, but an architect of narratives. She grabbed a pen and paper, scribbling down everything she could envision. Seasonal dishes, local partnerships, and innovative presentations created a cascading whirlwind of ideas. Each scribble ignited sparks within her. She felt powerful for the first time in years. But a voice nagged at her, the cautious warning that the industry was unforgiving. The competition rules crept into her mind like a chilling whisper. High stakes, industry judges, critical evaluations. Margie forced herself to confront the paralytic fear threading through her thoughts. Failure wasn't the end, it was part of the journey. She remembered her culinary school instructors hammering that truth into her, that even the most esteemed chefs had flopped before rising to greatness. The next morning, she called for a team meeting.
Culinary staff gathered, curiosity mixed with concern etched on their faces. Margie straightened her spine, the CEO's challenge empowering her voice. "I have an opportunity for us, and I want all of you to join me in this. A competition is coming up, and I want us to enter as a team. We'll showcase our skills and philosophy. This is our chance to define who we are going forward." Skepticism flickered in their eyes. "Have you thought about the risks?" one chef interjected. "What if we don't place? What if your father disapproves?" Each query hammered against her resolve, yet she felt fortified by her vision. "If we don't take this leap, we'll remain stagnant, trapped in the past. The industry isn't waiting for us to get comfortable." She locked eyes with the doubting chef. "If we fail, we learn. If we succeed, we amplify our voice. Isn't that worth the risk?" Slowly, determination replaced hesitation among her team. Ideas flowed, dishes were brainstormed, stories woven around each ingredient. Each meeting crackled with energy, excitement replacing anxiety as they delved deeper into planning. Margie became more than just a head chef. She was a leader, igniting a fire within her kitchen. Yet, as her confidence grew, so did her anxiety about her father. His unyielding approach lurked in the back of her mind, like a storm cloud, threatening to overshadow her creativity. Would he believe in her vision? In her attempt to carry forward the legacy he had built? Would he embrace change or resist it? Tension gripped her chest as she approached him that evening. She had hoped for validation, but his skeptical gaze seemed to peel away her bravado. "You may be entering territory you're not prepared for." Margie squared her shoulders, feeling the heat of determination. "I'm ready to push boundaries, Dad. I need your support." "Support?" he echoed, incredulity lacing his voice. "I want you to believe in this, in us," she implored, realizing she had stepped beyond the realms of a daughter and into the domain of a leader. The air between them crackled with unsaid words, accusations simmering beneath the surface. Could she convince him? Did she even have to? The stakes heightened, and only clarity would emerge through the tension. A realization that echoed through her mind. She wasn't just fighting for herself, she was fighting for her identity. As she walked away, breathing deeply to calm the storm within, the competition loomed ahead like a dark horizon. Each passing moment brought her closer to a pivotal choice, to risk her vision or to walk away from her dreams. The tracks she forged could either lead to an astonishing future or spiral her deeper into uncertainty. The game had changed, with the stakes raised, and Margie was more determined than ever to navigate the chaos. But as she prepared for the journey ahead, a profound question lingered in the air. Was she ready to confront her own fears and her father's expectations in pursuit of her passion? As dawn broke over the city, rays of sunlight sliced through the kitchen windows, illuminating every corner like a spotlight on a stage. Margie stood there, solitary yet resolute, amidst the organized chaos of her culinary sanctuary. Today, everything felt different. The remnants of her father's skepticism still echoed in her ears, but she was no longer just a chef in his shadow. She was her own architect,
fortified by a newfound sense of purpose. Gripping the edge of the counter, she took a moment to breathe deeply and dismiss the lingering doubts that threatened to inundate her renewed resolve. She couldn't afford self-doubt, not now, as plans thickened with potential and ambition surrounded her. What if they could redefine their menu together, create dishes that were not just food, but stories infused with emotion? She called an impromptu meeting with her team, sensing the urgency to ignite their collaboration further. Each member needed to understand that their voices mattered in this journey. As they gathered, Margie introduced the concept of culinary storytelling. This isn't just about cooking, it's about crafting identities through our plates. Each ingredient tells a part of our story, a piece of who we are as a team. Eyes widened around her. This was different. This was inspiring. Gradually, obstacles began to crumble. One chef suggested a farm-to-table approach, while another envisioned integrating the culinary traditions of their diverse backgrounds. Each idea spiraled into the next, sparking enthusiasm across the table, filling the kitchen with laughter and creativity. But as excitement brewed, so did the undercurrent of paranoia. Margie knew all too well that excitement could be fleeting. Her gut twisted as she recalled how her father would scoff at such a free-spirited approach, yet she pressed on. If she allowed the weight of his legacy to crush her creativity, she would risk stalling their progress. The stakes were raised higher, and Margie understood that failure was still a daunting possibility. Despite her team's growing confidence, she faced the reality that nothing would guarantee they would succeed or even reach the competition's final stages. Yet, buried beneath that reality lay an infinite possibility of self-discovery and resilience. Motivated by clarity, she began to delegate tasks. Each chef was encouraged to explore new techniques and flavors. Margie would check in with them, offering critiques and encouragement, fostering an environment where risk-taking was celebrated. In quiet moments after shifts, she would find herself brainstorming dish ideas, honing her own culinary voice. And then came the day of the first big taste test. The atmosphere was thick with anticipation as Margie stood at the helm, focusing on the dishes that awaited judgment from not only her team, but from herself. Would they resonate as more than mere replication? She could almost hear her father murmur his disapproval in her mind, but she silenced it. "Let's just make what we believe in," she urged her team, facing the looming pressures they had created for themselves. As they plated up
signature dishes, each one an embodiment of the risks they had taken, Margie felt her pulse race. The aromas filled the air, and her heart swelled. This was more than just cooking. It was an assertion of their identities, a rebellion against doubt. But as she gazed upon her team, a looming question tightened in the pit of her stomach. Was this growth enough to escape the shadows of her father's expectations? Was she courting not just validation from her team, but from herself? That troubling thought weighed heavily as they prepared for the impending critique. If the judges didn't appreciate their efforts, would she lose all that they had built together? The fear that loomed was palpable, yet so was the determination to face her father's scrutiny head-on. With what felt like the collective heartbeat of her team resonating around her, she knew that standing by her vision was all she truly wanted. Yet, as Margie resolved to embrace the fear, one chilling conviction settled beneath her confidence. She was not only fighting for her identity, but for everyone's faith in change. As they set the plates on the table for the judges, she realized she was standing on a precipice, caught between fear and hope, tradition and transformation. The moment was pregnant with possibility, but tensions coiled tighter around her resolve. Would their stories be enough to inspire belief, or would they crumble under the weight of external expectations? The time had come to face that uncertainty, and Margie was about to discover if the leap she had taken would lead to soaring heights or a painful fall. The judges finally arrived. Margie felt a shallow breath escape her lips as they took their seats, their expressions a blend of curiosity and skepticism. Each smile seemed to carry a weight that pressed down on her chest.
reminding her of every moment she had spent doubting herself, of the sneers and dismissals that had etched themselves into her memory. As the first dish was presented, Margie clenched her fists, channeling all her anxiety into a focused determination. The entry was a vibrant salad incorporating heirloom tomatoes, handmade ricotta, and a drizzle of aged balsamic, a tribute to their farm-to-table vision. She watched intently as one of the judges took a bite, the tension practically vibrating off the walls of the kitchen. A smile broke across his face, and for a fleeting moment, hope blossomed in her heart. One dish after another was unveiled, each one an intricate narrative woven with the threads of art and culinary history. Creativity flooded the air, but Margie wrestled with an ever-present specter of doubt. What if the judges were merely being polite? What if behind their smiles was the same critical edge her father once wielded? The thought gnawed at her. Finally, it was time for the tasting of their pièce de résistance. Margie had infused a classic dish with contemporary twists. Braised short ribs, accompanied by a fragrant spiced carrot puree and crispy potato galette, inspired by the rich tapestry of her team's heritage. As she plated the food, she felt a deep connection to what each layer represented. It conveyed more than just taste. It embodied the journey they had traversed together. Yet, as she set the plate before the judges, a jolt of self-doubt broke through her confidence like glass shattering. Her heart raced as the lead judge picked up his fork. But was he really ready to taste her story? Would he see the artistry and passion that lay beneath the surface, or would he reduce it to mere technique? The first bite sent shivers down her spine, and she held her breath as she awaited his reaction. Slowly, his brow furrowed. Had she made a mistake? Her mind swirled with anxieties, and she struggled to maintain composure in front of her team. They had built something beautiful, yet the fear of ruin clawed at her thoughts. Then the unexpected happened. The judge broke into a loud laugh that echoed through the kitchen. Margie's heart sank for a brief moment, convinced the critique would be harsh. But as he spoke, his tone shifted. "I can't believe the foundation of this dish. It's playful, yet profound. You've taken a cultural staple and turned it on its head. This is fantastic." In that instant, her team erupted in cheers. Caught up in the applause, Margie felt a wave of relief wash over her. But the moment was bittersweet as she registered something deeper. A realization that her growth, the team's growth, was not purely tied to external validation. It was wrapped in the struggles and triumphs they had achieved together. As the critiques continued, each judge praised another aspect of their work, starting to ignite a flame of belief she hadn't realized was flickering inside her. Yet, even in this moment of triumph, her father's voice crept in at the edges of her mind, reminding her that nothing could ever truly measure up in his eyes. How could she move past that feeling? Deep within her, a new desire began stirring. The urge to confront her father's ghost, to wrestle with the legacy he built, and carve a path that felt right for her. Ultimately, it wasn't just about culinary success. It was about reshaping her own identity and redefining what it meant to cultivate strength through authenticity. As the judges concluded their critiques, announcing they would discuss later and return with a decision, Margie felt a surge of urgency. There was more at stake than just competition. It was her moment to embrace her story fully. But as the day waned, a haunting thought lingered in her mind. Was she ready to confront her father and his unyielding expectations, or would fear once again hold her back? The tension between acceptance and rebellion loomed large, as Margie realized that her journey had only just begun. The echo of applause still rang in her ears as Margie stepped out of the kitchen, a multitude of emotions swirling within her. The unexpected praise had ignited a spark.
Yet the deeper shadows of her father's expectations loomed heavy in her consciousness. Each compliment from the judges was a reminder of how far she and her team had come, but also a taunting echo of everything she had ever felt insufficient. Margie paced the quiet hallway, her shoes clicking softly on the polished floor, each sound reverberating with a new intensity. This was not just about the culinary accolades. It was about her reclaiming her narrative. The fear that crept in every time she thought of her father was unbearable. What would it look like to not only succeed within the confines he set, but to thrive in a way he would never recognize? Drawing a deep breath, she leaned against a wall, arms crossed, and stared into the distance. Confrontation and acknowledgement loomed like storm clouds on the horizon. Was she ready to confront a man she had built a lifetime of defenses against? Each reflection on the mirror of her past was a conversation not yet had, a daughter longing for approval and a father whose vision had always eclipsed her own. She felt a wave of determination swell within her. Creating the dishes today required not just culinary skills, but the strength to understand and integrate the heritage she was proud of. This was her moment to forge a new identity that strayed from her father's expectations. She thought of the salads, the short ribs, the spices that danced vibrantly together, each dish whispering tales of her journey, each flavor a note in the symphony of her authentic self. Margie recognized it wasn't merely about defying her father. It was about examining her worth, independent from his lens. The complexity of her internal struggle began to untangle as she recalled the laughter with her fellow chefs, their shared inspirations, and the notion that collaboration could lead her to new heights. They had each embraced their creeds, their fears, and it had made their dishes powerful. Harnessing that thought stirred an audacious energy within her. She began to compose a strategy, a plan to not just face her father, but to invite dialogue. Perhaps it would be a dinner, just them. With each course, she would share not just food, but stories of her journey. It was an offer, one wrapped in vulnerability. She would present him her work, not as a plea for approval, but as a gift of self-acceptance. Would he embrace it, or would he remain shackled to the ghosts of their past? As the judges returned, revealing their scoring, Margie forced her focus back to the present moment. Their feedback was thunderous. The chef who had powered through oppressive doubt now stood armored in resolve, each word infusing her with clarity. She recognized the genuine nature of the compliments. All of it was valid, just as her experiences were. The fear of letting her father down was no longer permitted to dictate her choices. The judges left, their final remarks igniting a sense of euphoria within her team. Yet as joy flooded the kitchen, Margie's heart quickened with apprehension. What awaited her beyond the accolades once the dust settled? Would it include a conversation with her father? She had momentum now, but would that energy sustain her? The challenge ahead was daunting. As the night approached, Margie's heart hammered with the weight of an unaddressed past that trembled at the threshold of confrontation. There was a decision to make, a moment to embrace the confrontation of her fears or to retreat into the shadows once more. And as she stood there, a decisive thought crystallized. The time had come to face not only her father's legacy, but also the reigning fear that enslaved her for too long. Would she, Margie the chef, have the audacity to challenge the very foundations of her upbringing? It was time to discover the depths of her courage, to rise or fall on her own terms. Margie woke to the sunlight streaming through her kitchen window, illuminating the myriad of spices that adorned her countertop. For days, the thrill of victory had danced through her mind, yet a deeper conflation lay beneath the excitement, a sense of anticipation mixed with dread. This was a pivotal moment, the calm before the storm, and she knew the storm would come in the form of her father's reaction. After the competition, her team had celebrated, but now, alone with her thoughts, she felt the weight of impending revelations. How could she transform the adrenaline of her culinary success into tangible change in her life? The plan flickered in her mind like a light, but she needed to build upon it. The idea of inviting her father to dinner loomed larger each passing second, each wistful thought surfacing her fears anew. Preparing dishes for the evening would not merely be a demonstration of her culinary prowess, but an artful negotiation of the self she had kept hidden. The stark divisions between her and her father felt increasingly rigid. The stark reminders of who he expected her to be intermingled with her newfound passion, Margie, the chef. She began sketching out a menu that would not only showcase her skill, but also embody her journey. Each plate would tell a story, layer upon layer of flavor revealing parts of her identity she was eager to share. As she crafted her menu, she felt compelled to infuse every dish with meaning. The roasted venison would mirror her struggle to balance tenderness with the sharpness of ambition. The vibrant ratatouille echoed her eclectic roots, while a delicate pavlova symbolized her resilience, fragile yet strong. In weaving these narratives into her cooking, she was reclaiming both her history and her future. Yet with each meticulously planned course came an undercurrent of anxiety. Would he embrace her culinary narrative or dismiss it as a mere fad? Would he set aside his expectations long enough to truly see her, the woman and chef, beyond his daughter? This uncertainty gnawed at her. The kitchen buzzed under her focused energy, a stark contrast to the swirling thoughts of her father. As summer vegetables simmered with bay leaves and thyme, she explored the depths of her own courage. Panic threatened at the edges, coaxing her to second-guess her decision, but she silenced it. This was her moment to assert herself, to challenge not just her father, but the remnants of doubt that lingered from her childhood. Margie arranged the dishes carefully, each plate a testament to her journey. As she prepped for the dinner, each slice, each dash of seasoning imbued with purpose, she considered the message she wanted to convey. This meal would be more than sustenance. It would be an invitation for her father to witness the woman she had become. As dusk settled, the air thickened with the scent of rosemary and roasted garlic, mingling with her mounting nervousness. The doorbell rang, a stark chime that rattled her resolve. It was time. Time to confront her lineage, to honor the chef she had become, and to lay bare the ambitions and fears that molded her. Margie inhaled deeply, centering herself. Would she find validation in her father's eyes, or would the gap between them widen further? A moment of clarity crystallized amidst her swirling emotions. She was ready to share her truth, regardless of what she might lose or gain in the process. Stepping toward the door, she paused, her heart throbbing in anticipation. It was the moment she had anticipated for years. The threshold loomed, representing not just the start of dinner, but the beginning of a conversation long overdue. As she took another deep breath and opened the door, she was jolted by a startling thought. What if her father was a mirror reflecting her own self-judgments? That realization surged with urgency, an awakening she had never expected. Whatever happened next would determine the trajectory of their relationship and her own growth. With her heart pounding, she stepped into the unknown, both excited and terrified of the conversations that awaited her. Would the dinner bring them closer or deepen the rift? Would Margie finally break free from the shadows of doubt? The initial conversation between Margie and her father began tentatively, small talk swirling around the flavors of the dishes she had prepared. As they settled at the table, Margie focused on the glistening roasted venison, finely plated. "Dad, I really wanted to create something special for you tonight," she said, her voice steady yet laced with apprehension. "This venison comes from a local farmer, and I've infused it with spices that tell a story of where we come from." Her father sampled the dish, and a silence blanketed the room. His eyes flickered over the elements on the plate, then lifted to hers, revealing shades of uncertainty intermingled with curiosity. She had longed for these moments, to share not just a meal, but the very essence of her journey. "It's different," he acknowledged, words slowly unfurling from his lips. "But change isn't easy for me." There was an unexpected vulnerability in his voice that softened the weighty expectations that had hung between them for so long. "It doesn't have to be easy, Dad. Sometimes it starts with a single dish." Margie felt a rush of determination as she continued. "The competition taught me that our legacy is not something we have to be trapped by. We can evolve it." As they moved through the courses, Margie articulated the stories behind each dish. The vibrant ratatouille represented their diverse culinary roots, an attempt to reflect the tapestry of flavors they grew up with. Each bite served as an invitation to explore not just her transformation, but the potential within their shared heritage. As her father tasted the ratatouille, a flicker of recognition seemed to dance in his eyes. He nodded thoughtfully. "The flavors are bright. This reminds me of when I first started experimenting in the kitchen," he said, his voice dipping into nostalgia. "But back then, I didn't have the confidence to challenge what was already expected." Margie felt her heart surge at his admission. "I struggled with that too, Dad, but I realized that honoring our past doesn't mean we can't take risks, that we can't reimagine what our restaurant means. I want to prove that we can innovate while respecting the roots you've planted." By the time they reached the delicate pavlova, a symbol of Margie's resilience, the conversation had opened up. Moments prior, the silent rift had seemed insurmountable, but now, amidst laughter and genuine exchanges, the intimacy between them unfurled with each layer of flavor. Her father's smile transformed, revealing both pride and acknowledgement. "To see you doing this, Margie, it's refreshing. You have your own voice, and I need to learn how to step back and appreciate it." Tears brimmed in Margie's eyes. After so many years of feeling overshadowed, she was beginning to understand that connection and love could emerge from vulnerability. "Together, Dad, we can forge a path that celebrates both our stories. Let's work together, adjust the menu, and give our community something to feast on, something that tells who we are now." A new understanding dawned between them, a bridge between past expectations and the limitless potential of tomorrow. As they finished dinner, a sense of calm enveloped Margie. She had not just showcased her culinary skills, she had transcended her previous identity. No longer the insecure daughter frozen by her father's legacy, she was Margie, the visionary chef, determined to shape her own destiny. Moving forward, she invited her father to join her in the restaurant's new direction. Together, they could explore innovative culinary ideas rooted in their shared history and cultural richness. The future glimmered ahead, filled not with fear, but with collaborative strength. This moment marked a genuine transformation for Margie. She had proven to herself that she could confront her fears, own her identity, and influence the legacy built on love and artistry. A solid confidence, she stepped back into the kitchen the next day, ready to lead her team into new culinary adventures, equipped not only with newfound knowledge, but also validated by the support of her father, a partnership rekindled and ready to thrive. The struggle had forged her, but it was the acceptance that liberated her, and now she was ready to share her success with the world. This was more than just about a restaurant. It was about liberation, understanding, and the joy of embracing one's true self, an achievement worth celebrating. She had conquered the confines of doubt and stepped boldly into the extraordinary. Her journey had just begun, but she was committed to walking it with integrity, clarity, and joy. Now, the time has come for you, the audience, to join Margie on this transformative journey. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories that showcase resilience and growth. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and support these powerful narratives. Comment your reactions and theories about Margie's journey and transformation. You need to share your thoughts. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. True fans of personal overcoming stories understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions. Be part of the journey.